Okay, Meredith and Greg, this is Midnight Local episode Renew Why We Got Fired. We got fired.
I love that saying. Instead of "we're back," you're like, "who got fired?"
Hey guys,
like
this
it.
is Midnight Local, and we got fired. You're on Midnight Local, the podcast from How to Drink, where we just talk about things,
Movies,
pop culture,
maybe some video games,
that too, all the things,
the stuff and things.
all of the stuff and the things on Midnight Local.
Let's get to it.
This is the first episode of Midnight Local that we've done in forever. Meredith and I are back. The show is back. And thank you all so much for so many people, Meredith, have been asking, where's the show?
I see it. I watch the comments. I see it a lot. Part of the reason why we're back, I think, is because those comments exist.
The public demanded it.
Yeah.
Popular demand
Yeah.
said we got to do more Midnight Local. And so
Can't disappoint people.
you got to give the people what they want, and we're doing it today. So let's talk about how we got fired. Let's talk about that.
I'm trying now. I find myself trying to remember exactly, but I guess.
It's an experience I shall never forget.
Okay, good. Well, so why don't you start with your experience, and I'll pepper in any fun tidbits that I remember.
Well, I think that we have to start up with the fact that we were hired in the first place,
Which always felt absolutely crazy to me. But I mean, I get it. But yeah.
Well, I don't even think, we always said, oh, thank you to Studio 71 for producing and distributing our podcast. I don't think a lot of people realized that, that was like a thing. You know what I mean? Like that that Studio 71 was producing and distributing the podcast, and it wouldn't have existed without them.
A huge, the lion's share of the work. Yeah, for sure.
Well, no.
Besides recording.
Yeah, that's the lion's share.
And watching. You're right.
In truth, I've seen the work that they were doing. They weren't doing the lion's share of shit.
Right. I'm being too kind, but I'll put the post work was done by them.
Yeah, even that was pretty light, though. They weren't doing a lot.
We weren't editing. We weren't, we were basically recording and handing it off at the end of the day.
And so, And so that's like the whole thing is that I had been approached. All right. So so Studio 71 is a multi-channel network. And I'm going to disparage them heavily in this. I don't give a shit. Studio 71 is one of these dinosaurs, these multi-channel networks that would go around in the olden days of YouTube and promise YouTubers, hey, if you let us control your advertising, we will get you a higher CPM. We will find you better sponsors. We will pair you up with other people in our network for collabs for a percentage of your gross. And usually it's like 20%. It's no joke. They want $1 of every 5.
Which we did. We did early days of How to Drink, not with Studio 71, but with another collaborator.
We did it for a specific reason with another collab because a particular YouTuber asked us to get involved. And it's hard to call that a bad move because it did, I think, work out. But financially, working with that network made no sense afterwards. And our separation got ugly because I did not realize the kind of pit bull our lawyer was. She was like, oh, they owe you money? I am gonna fucking kill these people. and I think we may have burned a lot of bridges in not realizing like she needs to be restrained.
Yes. We didn't need to start there. We could have started softer and then ramped up if need be. Yeah, I remember that.
Holy shit, man.
But it was also like we were getting a lot of sponsors reaching out to us directly and still having to give the cut. And I know that's how agencies work. That's how it works for people who get jobs in the film industry. But it wasn't making sense for us financially.
No, I mean, and I as a person who sometimes, a lot of kids want to be YouTubers, it turns out. And I've said this before and I'll say it again and I'll probably do it on my other YouTube channel too. Don't work with these people. They're not going to offer you anything that you can't do for yourself for cheaper. If you really want to have someone else do it for you, find a friend and give them 20% of your money because all the job is answering the phone. That's it.
Yeah. I don't even think they were doing much cold outreach. Like they weren't bringing us much of anything. People they knew. To
the extent that and we're still talking, just so that people are trying to keep up because we're talking in circles here. We're still talking about umbrella concept, the multi-channel network in YouTubing. So they're not doing any cold outreach. To the extent that they can do anything that you can't do on your own, they're going to act as an ad agency where they have relationships with sponsors, and the sponsor is going to purchase X number of impressions across their entire agency platform, and then they get to pick and choose who they're farming out those impressions, what podcasts, what YouTube channels we're going to feed those impressions into, right? Like, oh, okay, well, these, Widgets Incorporated wants to buy 1 million impressions in the males age 24 to 34 range near cities. Needing 1 million impressions. Okay, well, cooking with Jimmy Jabouie, we can give that. We have them. We'll give them 100,000 impressions, and these girls who do makeup over here, we'll give them 50,000 impressions. Like, you can. That's what happens, and you don't see that. You're not privy to that conversation. They just come to you and say, "Hey, we have a sponsor, and this is what they're going to pay." But like, it's not even them going to pay it. I already got paid. I'm the agency. I'm now paying you to work for me.
Didn't we end up like? Didn't we have reach out once too from one of these companies that was cutting both ways? Because we also, when we get sponsors regularly, we're reaching out to an agency from the sponsors end. They hire someone to go out and look for influencers to put them on. So I thought there was a company that was like taking the cut from the total getting paid, and then a cut from what we get paid. Something crazy like that.
Well, I mean, and this is what I'm describing right now is moral hazard, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a concept in Hollywood called packaging, and that's where your agent, who is a fiduciary bound to act on your best interests and gets 10% of your gross, and being a fiduciary is like a real thing. Like, they're literally bonded for this purpose. Your producer isn't. And what happens when you get, quote, packaged, when the film is a, quote, package deal, is that your agency is like, oh, okay, well, CAA is going to package this. So we're going to use a CAA director, and we're going to use CAA talent, and we're going to use CAA writers across the board. And then everybody, here's some forms for you guys to sign, not a big deal. And then like one of them hidden in there, and this is what a big part of the previous writer's strike was about. Hidden in there is this thing that says, by the way, you acknowledge that like we're not acting as a fiduciary on this, because now they're the exec producers. Yeah. And so they're still your agent, and the exec producer is the person who hires you, and you don't know that your agent is now the person that's hiring you because they hid it between two papers, and they're the person whose job it is to read those papers, right? They're the deal maker. So now they are acting in bad faith, talking out of both sides of their mouth, negotiating with you against themselves. Like, it's not real. So there was a great thread on Twitter, when it was Twitter, that David, I can't remember his last name for some reason. Well, not for some reason, because I have a broken brain. The guy who did The Wire, he went on this whole tear explaining this whole thing and arguing it was like there was a sub strike where all these people in the WGA were firing their writers. Firing their agents. It was like not quite a strike. It was like a walkout. I don't know what it was. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know how that worked. That's insane. That's fucking, that should be illegal. And it's not, but it should be.
So now we're deep in the weeds on that. But all of that is to say that we were working with an agency that wasn't nefarious like that. I wouldn't say. We kind of went off on another tangent. But yeah. They weren't doing that.
I was just to explain multi-channel networks on YouTube and why you shouldn't work with them.
Yeah.
So Studio 71 is a multi-channel network, and they had reached out to us about YouTube management at least a couple of times. And I took their call once, and then afterwards I was like, I'm never talking to these people again. Mm-hmm. But then they kept reaching. Some other department in the umbrella of Studio 71, these are big companies, the podcast department said, hey, Greg, we want you to do a podcast. And I said, I don't want to work with you guys. You're scumbags. And they said, no. That's those guys. No. We're the podcast people. The rest of the company, no good. No bueno. But like, not us. We're all happy pals down here in podcast land. And And so we had this whole conversation. This is before you were even involved. Like a year before you were involved, I was talking to them about doing a podcast.
I remember you were talking about tabletop stuff and things like that. I remember the conversations, but yeah, we weren't.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, and that was the thing, is that like, guys, I'm already burning 60 hours a week of my life making How to Drink. So there's no way I can invest more time in this. So A, it has to be really low effort, and B, you guys have to do all the posts. And they were like, that's great. What do you want a podcast about? And initially I wanted to do an interview show because I'm a white male with a microphone, and that's what we all do. We all have to go on here and ask people about things and act like we know what we're talking about. It's a rule, it's like you have to make babies. You have a biological
that
clock.
is the rule. I've fulfilled my purpose.
Yeah, no, I mean,
This is
like,
just extra.
Hey, wait a minute. This is a movie podcast ostensibly, and I'm making a reference to 90s rom-coms, okay, and sitcoms. Apparently, women have biological clocks that dictate their lives.
That concept is not stuck in the 90s. Let me tell you, it is alive and well today.
Yeah, for some people, it might be alive. It might be real. I don't know, but I'll tell you this, for men who are approaching and now exceeding 40, there very much is a biological clock to start a podcast. Yes. It's right down ticking in our DNA. Yeah. You don't know. It sneaks right up on you. All of a sudden, you're in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, and you're like, oh, God, what am I going to do with my life? I got to have a podcast.
All of these conversations I'm having must be recorded and sent out to the world.
Absolutely. I think everybody needs to know what I
can't miss out on
it. No, and I wanted to do the interview show, and they were like, that's great, but like, we can't get, you're going to do the outreach, you're going to find the guests. And I was like,
still felt like a lot of work. No. Yeah.
And so the thread went cold. And then like another year later, they came back and they're like, we still want to do a podcast with you. And at that time, you and I were talking about creating other ventures. And I was literally just like, maybe Meredith does want to do a podcast. So that's when we came up with Midnight Local.
Well, and to be fair too, they were offering something. Like having someone doing the post was worth, it's something we were going to pay for anyway, so it was worth paying for. Yeah.
So they were going to do post, and they were going to sell ads against the podcast to what any advertising agency is going to do, which is good. We needed someone to do that. Mm-hmm. They were going to handle the hosting, and deal with all of that, because like there's stuff to learn about doing a podcast. I looked into doing it solo, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. And they were going to pay us a stipend, an advance against advertising, and an advance, for those of you who don't know, that's like money that I give you on kind of loan, in an assumption that like we're going to make more than that on advertising. And so
that was the big that was nice.
That was great. That was what, wow. Meredith, I bought a house with the assumption of that advance. And then as soon as I moved in, they were like, you're fired. So they were paying us, I think we could talk money. This is not big numbers. So. They're paying us $2,000 a month each to do the podcast.
To each. Yeah. I mean, that's.
You got $500 a week.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's fantastic.
Most podcasters, it takes a long time to get there. I think, it was really nice.
It was really good. Yeah, it was great. And to me, I was like, and they kept saying like, but we're going to make millions of dollars, which in case anybody's ever wondering, no, How to Drink has never made millions of dollars. I know people think 1.7 million subscribers, but like, guys, we are barely a middle-class YouTube channel at this point. No, but but it's a job, like it sounds like a lot of money if you're out of the loop or whatever, but like we're spending a lot of time. It was a lot of time. It was work, it was not without labor, because we had to record the show, research the show, which I didn't want to do. The whole idea was that we weren't going to have to research, and also had to supervise post and listen to the podcast. And like, you were working a lot on it, like more than me.
Yeah, well, and just approving thumbnails and coming up with descriptions and log lines and all of that. And it's not an overwhelming amount of work. $500 a week covers it more or less. But I think podcasts are a labor of love, and people don't usually have someone in their corner that's helping them to monetarily make them come to life. People have other jobs, people who are doing, and we do too. How to Drink is the other job. So this had to be on the side.
Very full-time job.
Yeah.
It's several full-time jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that most podcasts have an outside firm producing them, unless it's literally somebody made it in their basement. I
Well,
think most podcasts
not
that are
most.
making money have
Most
some
podcasts,
money behind them.
most podcasts that you are hearing and you're listening to, but like
Right.
podcasts are an iceberg, and there's the tippy top that you know about, and then I was looking up averages of what viewership of podcasts, and we were in like the top 5%, right? So it's like there's a huge cavern of people just trying to find audience, and because we have How to Drink, we have some audience already present, and I think that Studio 71 and us, but them more, way overestimated how easily people move from one platform to another.
And I think there may have been some other stuff going on behind the scenes there too. So part of what they had promised us, in addition to a stipend, well, not a stipend, an advance, because in theory we were we were going to out earn that $2,000, but like not see another dollar until we paid it all back.
Right.
You know, with their expenses, which they would never tell us all the details about what their expenses were, which is one of the reasons it took us like a year to get through the contract, because there was all these arguments about like, but what expenses? And they were like, well, we don't know. And I was like, this sounds like the music industry in the 70s. I don't know. Don't worry about it. You know, we're just going to take it right out of your paycheck. You'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. We have to fly in our editor once a week. She stays in a really nice hotel. Like, it could have been anything.
Could have been anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just to tell this story, they were supposed to promote us on other podcasts. And there was a big deal about them. Oh, we need you to record a commercial to run on other podcasts. And we were like, because they have other podcasts they manage. We said, great. What does it sound like? What do you want it to be? How long should it be? And then they never gave us that information. And they were supposed to get us guests and make us guests on other podcasts. And they never did that.
Although we did record something and they were playing it, because I had people telling me that they were listening to such and such podcast and they heard an ad for our podcast.
We recorded a trailer that was meant to be it was like 2 minutes long, and it was meant to be like at the top of, you go to our podcast page, and then they just took that and used it as an ad.
That's what they were using.
But it's like, I was really annoyed when they told us that, because I was like, that's not a 30-second ad. Like that was never made to be a 30-second ad. It doesn't work as a 30-second ad. Of course this thing isn't working. Like, why would you do that? That's so stupid. Aren't you an ad agency? Like, that's a really weird, naive, that's some bullshit. You're just not even putting in the effort.
We got signed on with them. They sent us a list of things we needed to get them, and then we barely heard from them ever again.
Never again. Exactly. And so we were supposed to have meetings about like the creative direction of the show. We were supposed to be collaborating on promoting the show.
Yeah. We had a producer that was like,
and I think that's a little bit on us, because you and I have a very specific definition of a producer. And I think in radio, producer means person who edits. Yeah. It doesn't really mean more than
there was we had an editor, and the producer was a separate person. I thought that person was supposed to be, guiding us through podcast land, more or less.
Yeah. So, 6 months, we're like begging to have a meeting. Like, hey guys, like, we're watching growth happen. I feel like you wanted it to go faster. What do you think?
What are our goals? What numbers do you want us to be hitting? What does success look like here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no response. Literally no response. Like, hey, we're on a linear growth chart. Should it be exponential? Like, are you guys liking this? Because we have a contract for 52 episodes, and we would love to know that we're going to renew, or where your feelings are. No response. No response.
I had a bad feeling at that point. I kept saying, I don't think this is going well for them.
Yeah. Well, what ended up happening, though, I don't think either of us expected.
Yeah.
And so I'm begging for this meeting. We're both begging for this meeting to talk about, like, we want to talk about promoting the show. We want to talk about creative direction. We have some ideas about how to pivot.
Guesting on other shows. Yeah.
I'd love to be on. Look at all these other podcasts you manage. Can you get us on there? Because I think that would help us bring in people. Greg, we're ready to have a meeting. Oh,
great.
We're finally going to have the meeting. Great. I've been asking for this for like months. Awesome. You and I are all set up. This is some Office Space shit. This is originally, when we talked about doing this, we talked about talking about Office Space, but I'm glad we didn't, because there'd be no room to tell this story. But this is the guy. Remember the guy who was like fired in Office Space, but they never told him he was fired. They just kind of stopped paying them.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what this is about. Yeah. This is like that. So we get to this meeting with like the head of creative, whatever. you, me, our producer, head guy, and he sits down on the Facey chat, and he's like, all right. He says, all right, Greg, why don't you lead us off? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about? And I just laid into everything. Like, hey, guys, well, we're really having a great time here. We hope you're enjoying the show. We're looking at the numbers. We see linear growth. We'd love to see it going faster. Don't know how you feel about that. Is this what you wanted? Do you need more for this to continue? We have some ideas about how to promote it. Love to talk with you, have a brainstorm about all of that. Maybe we get on some other podcasts. We would love to record. Have you guys been running an ad? Because I've never heard it. You never told us that there was an ad running. Can we record an ad? Blah, blah, blah. Just like all of that. And then there's a pause, and he says, so we're going to end your contract.
Yeah, so we don't think this is working out.
Why did they ask me to lead us off? Why did they ask, what are your concerns? What are you thinking, Greg? Cool, you're fired. That's the part I was so flummoxed. I was like, this might be like some kind of management strategy, because like I was off balance for the rest of that meeting, and I got angry, and I tried to keep it cool, because I was like, wait a minute, you guys have done fucking shit all on this.
But I mean, in their minds, like, well, yeah, but they put in an investment hoping to not put in any more investment, clearly, in time or man hours, until it was worth their time and man hours. And that didn't happen. And so they were like, great, glad you called this meeting. There are some things we'd like to talk about. See you later. Yeah. I wonder, would we have gotten fired if we hadn't have pushed for the meeting? Do you think?
No, I asked that on the call. That was like one of my my parting moment there. I was like, guys, I've been begging for this meeting for months. And you finally acquiesced and gave it to me, and you fired me at you fired us at our own meeting. Would this have happened if I hadn't been begging for the meeting? And he said no.
He said, I don't remember. I don't
He said, to be perfectly honest, we probably wouldn't have noticed.
Man.
So
cutting
don't
off
work
our
with Studio
noses
71.
to spider face. Yeah.
Yeah. What bullshit is that?
And you know, when the numbers kept going all over the place too. Like when we first talked to them, they're like, if you're getting like 5,000 listeners an episode, that's in a really good place. We can start selling ads on that. And then when we talked to him in this meeting, he's like, you know, the landscape for podcasts have really changed. Now you need like 50,000 per episode. And I was like, well, we're getting close to 5 after 6 months. So yeah, we're not doing what you guys need us to be doing here. And we're not getting there that quickly. 5,000 a month's like nothing to sneeze at in podcast world. Like it's good. It's good growth, but
it's a good place to start. Yeah. It's a great place to be starting.
It's not 50,000, let me tell you.
No.
So yeah, so we got ourselves fired by trying to
promote the show. We got fired trying to promote the show. And a lot of people, like, there was comments where there were angry comments that I got, where people were like, I got pissed about this one too. It was a specific one where somebody was like, I've never before heard of a podcast folding because you lost your production backer. Like, what in the fuck? And like, people,
I didn't see those.
Yeah, there was at least one of those. And I was just like, I don't think you've heard of shit. I don't think you've been in the rooms, man.
Yeah.
You know, it was an extra.
Maybe people don't say why their podcasts fold, but I mean, podcasts drop left and right.
Yeah. It's at least another 10 to 15 hours a week of work for me at the time, the way we were doing it.
Yeah, I think this is a very small portion of the internet, but there are people who think that all of this is just a hobby.
Right.
And how lucky you are to get to do this hobby and to have viewers. And look, it is lucky. It is a lucky position to be in, to be able to do this and make money. However, we have families and expenses and rely on a certain cash flow in order to make those things operable.
Yep.
And if we're not getting that cash flow here, we have to get it somewhere else, which means these shows don't happen. So it is a job. I don't hesitate in saying a job. It's a job. And like, if you want content that is tailored to you that you really like, money's got to come from somewhere.
It's got to. Well, and and that's like the thing is that, there's only so many hours in the week, and you spend the ones that you spend on labor, you should be getting compensated for. As the Joker says. My father said, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. Or also, what I always think of? You remember the 90s? Hey, do you remember the 90s? Do you remember the song by Cypress Hill, Rock Superstar, that went double platinum in 1999? I always remember that because in that song, there's a whole audio playing out in the background where there's an interview with an imaginary rock star talking about it's a job, it's a fun job, but it's a job.
Yeah.
You can't spend 60 hours a week on something or 50 hours a week on something and have any gas left in the tank to have another job. There's no more time.
Well,
so if it's not paying the bills, I don't know what you do,
Yeah. In the early days of How to Drink, when I was trying to figure out how are we going to get paid, how are we going to continue paying for production, because at that point we had a whole crew coming in. COVID hadn't happened. We hadn't sort of automated the shooting as much as we have. I mean,
we converted it into a system that I automate solo.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. You can operate it.
I'm over there running 3 cameras.
It's Gregomated. I'll give you all that. However you want me to say it, Greg. You earned it. You built that whole system. It's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But we had 5 crew members in a room for
6 or 7
for a number of years. And I was looking at our money coming in and money going out, thinking this show is too expensive. And I spent a good 6 months trying to tell you we need to can these close-ups. We need to just put you in front of a camera, turn on the camera, shoot the episode, try not to have that much editing and be done with it.
See, kids, never give in to your producer's demands to save money, because boy, what a disaster that would have been. That was the wrong solution, but it was the right instinct. It was just the wrong solution.
It was just I couldn't see how it could continue, and then we had a couple of episodes really take off, and then honestly, COVID hit, which forced us to pare down, to Gregify our production, which also saved us money.
Within weeks.
Which changed a lot.
It saved us $70,000 a year.
Yeah, at least.
That was the math I did. So that's why I was like, okay, well, we can spend the money on this equipment. This is necessary. And the other thing too is that a lot, you say then the pandemic hit. I thought you were going somewhere else. I was going to say a lot of How to Drink success did come from the pandemic, but at the time, it didn't really look like that because we were already on an upward trajectory, and a strong one at that. And actually, when the pandemic really hit in May or whatever it was, when the first stay-at-home
March
went out, viewership
2020.
went crazy, but the value of viewership hit the floor. We did more views in that month than we've ever done on the show in a single month, but made less money than we've ever made in a single month on the show. And then it balanced out, it recovered. But there was just no advertising dollars being spent by anybody. So the CPM hit the floor, which is we could do a whole other talk about how that works. So when they pulled the plug and we stopped getting our advance, I was like, and you were pregnant, by the way. Congrats.
I was very pregnant.
We haven't recorded since Meredith became a mom. We should probably life update. Meredith's a mom.
I mean, that's gonna be part of my second part of where have we been, that's a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
But yes, I am a parent. Yeah.
Mommerin'.
It's awesome.
Mommy moms. How old is she?
But you were moving houses at the time.
I was moving and building a new studio.
Pregnant and about to head to Alaska, I'm pretty sure. I think we had episodes recorded and they agreed to finish up the episodes because we had also just sat down for and recorded 8 or 9 episodes over the course of 2 days. And so we're like, well, we put in all this effort. They're like, we will stay. They stayed good too. We'll finish up those episodes and release those. So all of those trickled out over the next month and a half.
And it was actually after I moved. We had recorded once here at the new place in a cobbled together thing that I had tossed up. What does that mean?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay, that's the live stream assist 3. Got it. Cobbled together, tossed together, whatever that we did here. While I was still trying to build a studio and still unpacking. We had boxes around us when we recorded that. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, we sure did.
I
So
actually,
you
yeah, sorry.
so the call must have happened after you moved,
Yeah, I
and
was
we
sitting
were
at this
trying to
desk.
build ourselves more runway, right? Because you were building out the studio. You were very busy with other things. We were trying to
Yep.
take the podcast, which also takes time off of both of our plates completely. Also, I was getting closer and closer to giving birth, so we knew we were going to need a bank of episodes to
That's
get
right.
us through that time.
Anyway, then they pulled the plug and said no more money. That was the part that killed me. We're not
Yeah.
going to be able to provide edit post-production services or your advance anymore, but you're welcome to continue providing us with episodes. And I was just like,
We'll platform them for you, is basically what that meant.
yeah, I was just like, what? I mean, we have,
We can still be buds, guys. We can still be friends.
I got to tell you, we're halfway through a 52 episode contract. I kind of want to beat the shit out of you. Like, I don't want to give you anything
Yeah.
for free except for an ass kicking. I was like,
So it's all right. We didn't get fired, Greg. We got dumped. They were like, look, the thing is,
yeah,
it's not you, it's
Yeah.
me. And I can't give this relationship any more time anymore. But like, if you shoot me a text, like I'll answer it. We're still
you
friends.
can still be my side piece. You can be my little booty call.
Yeah, exactly. But occasionally I'll give you a call. We'll get together. It'll be
Post
fun.
those podcasts at 3 a.m. when I'm drunk.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, you say it's not you, it's me. I think it could have been too, because that exact time frame, like, I don't think that. I wonder if they knew they were firing us when they agreed to the meeting, because he looked real uncomfortable during that meeting, and that was
Yeah.
exactly when, and it was some other MCN podcast network. It came out that the exec producer had been embezzling bajillions of dollars and robbing all these people, and there was like all kinds of like companies were folding, people were throwing lawsuits around. And I wonder if somehow this happened in the orbit of that. That people were just like, circle the wagons, cut the dead weight,
Yeah.
you know?
I also feel like the big podcasters have probably figured out how to separate from these companies and do it on their own, kind of how we are on YouTube. And so I would imagine that money, you've got to find this middle ground where someone really finds you taking a cut to be worth the work that you're putting
Right.
in, which isn't very much. Like they would clean up the episodes. Sometimes there were things left in the episodes that I would catch that I would be like, I don't know if you even listened to the whole
they didn't.
episode in your edit. Yeah. So
She,
yeah, people who can afford an editor for a couple $1,000s a month and want to pay one of their buddies to do it are going to cut ties with someone who's helping them out with that real quickly.
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, you definitely will outgrow those networks, and you get better deals as it goes. Like, you know, if all of a sudden it is like, you know, if we had the Mr. Beast of podcasts, they're going to bend over fucking backwards. They're going to suddenly be like, dude, we'll take a 2%. We'll do all of this for
Yeah,
2%,
right.
1%, whatever. Please stay. And, you know, and at some point it doesn't financially make any sense for you to stay there at all, and you split. And then actually it really goes around. You're like, you know what? Actually, if I stay with the network, I think I need to own a piece of it. Like, that's what ends
Yeah.
up happening. You know,
Oprah, that
that's,
shit.
yeah, exactly. Like, you guys,
I will do your ads for Weight Watchers, but I own 5%
we turn
of
this
your company
the other
now.
direction. Yeah, exactly. We're not there. It's like, speaking of Mr. Beast, like, there's a thing where in some interview he said, I can't really do sponsorships anymore because no advertiser can afford a fair rate for what we make. Like, it just doesn't make any
Yep.
sense, you know.
Why would he? Why?
I launch my own products or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they just can't afford my real estate. Really, it's like when you think about advertising, you're selling, you know, real estate of the mind, and you don't want to devalue that. So
Yeah. I mean, we took a step back at that moment.
Yeah.
I also think like there's a bit of relief in it because we were already having conversations ourselves saying we're not really talking about what we want to be talking
Yes.
about. These episodes don't feel how we intended them to feel. I felt pressure to deliver a product to them that was perhaps a little bit more like buttoned up, professional than just us shooting the
Yep.
shit. And we felt like we'd chosen this theme of movies that we had to stick to in a very prescriptive way, and deviating from that was going to cause problems. Like I don't know. It's hard to have someone else that you feel like you're answering
yeah,
to.
well, especially when we haven't for so long on YouTube, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, like, specifically the idea behind Midnight Local, and people always ask, what's the name? People always are asking, Meredith, all of these people.
Always.
What does the name mean? Like, I'm not telling you what it means. It doesn't really mean anything. But it's a vibe. That I was going to say is that, like...
How Gen Z of
Yeah,
you.
the idea was... Gen Z. Hello, fellow...
Podcasting on vibes.
Hello, fellow kids. How are you doing? Skibbity toilet. What I was...
Tangent.
Sorry, yeah. What I was going to say, though, is that the idea was that the show was a tangent. Like, we were going to start an episode from a, hey, did you see this movie? And then go wherever that conversation went. And they were like, that's not going to work. You're going to really need to be a movie podcast on the movie. And it was like, all of a sudden, it was a lot more work because we thought we were just going to have a nice chat. And they were like, you got to have some research here. Really
well, we
focused.
recorded a few episodes early on that were kind of like that, and they were like, well, these aren't really editable. I think these are throwaway episodes. Try again, sort of. And we were like, okay. And at that point, we were kind of trusting these people know what they're talking about. They know how to get listens. That's their job, is to guide us through like how to be a successful podcast. Yeah. So we were really like, all right, we'll listen to them.
Surely they know what they're doing. You're fired.
Yeah, and then we and then we started doing more button-up podcasts and never heard from them again.
Back to Office Space, it really did also, now I'm thinking about it, it's like a very much like, how much flair do you want me to wear, Todd? You know?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just tell me what you want, and I'll happily do that instead of making me guess. What the fuck?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it did feel like that.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to neatly wrap up in a bow again. Like, people were like, you know, oh, so the money dried up and you just stopped. Well, yeah, because I was selling at least 10 hours a week of my life. And I don't know how many for you, because you were doing more work than I was.
Yeah.
And when someone's not paying you for that, at some point you got to look around and be like, maybe not right now. And that's what we said.
Well, and we intended a much shorter pause, because the first conversation we had was like, what do we actually want to talk about in this podcast? Is there an angle? Is there like, should we watch a series all the way through? Should we watch really obscure movies that we want to remind people exist? We spent a lot of time trying to figure out, now that we don't have these golden handcuffs.
I'm tied up. The handcuffs.
$2,000 a month, golden handcuffs.
I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean,
no. But like, now that we're
break
not
it out
answering
hourly, and it doesn't look so good.
Yeah, exactly. What do we want this podcast to be? And as we had those conversations over the course of a couple of months, and I got more and more pregnant, it was like, we're really going to take on editing for ourselves and all of the posts and everything right now. Exactly. I felt that like we'd get an episode or two out there, and then I would have the inability, and boy, more than I expected. I way overestimated how well I was going to balance having an infant and being able to just like work like normal. You know,
let the record stand. Greg did not.
You did. No, yeah, you warned me constantly.
I was just like, why don't you just like detach for as long as you need to?
Yeah. So, so it was the right move. We would have put out a couple episodes and then had to take a step back again. I think that would have pissed people off more. And I think we both decided taking a longer break and then coming back when we really could dedicate time to it again was the way to go.
And hopefully we can now. No promises.
I think so. Well, and here's like, that's another part of this is like, we're still like, we've got 3 episodes slated to record today. They're all very different. Yep. We really want to hear from the audience about what they like, what they want us to continue doing. And there is going to be like, now we can be on a journey with our audience, a journey with our audience.
Together. We have 3 more episodes to record today.
That's correct. And then we will try and tailor the content from there. We'll keep just being weird and talking about weird stuff.
Yep.
Or
hopefully people just want to hear the sounds of our voices.
Yes. And maybe we'll do, 2 a month for once every other week for a little while until we can really ramp up fully. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we're off to the races once these come out. Those are things we are yet to fully figure out.
Speaking of the sounds of our voices, is OnlyFans audio a thing?
I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. You want to get into sex radio?
ASMR? I cannot think of a job worse. me. Worst suited for me. I've been told I have very nice feet, and that is something that I occasionally look down at my feet, and I'm like, maybe.
There's no face on your feet.
Yeah,
No,
although I do have a very defining tattoo on my foot. So
foot tat? Which one?
it's the zip code where I grew up.
Jesus, yeah, you'd want to blur that.
So I have I guess I could cover it with makeup, but I've sort of killed my foot fetish future.
Yeah, damn it.
I know. It's a
That's
real
gotta be
bummer.
a saturated market.
Kids, think before you get a tattoo.
Yeah, I don't have
those feet might be worth something someday.
Yeah, they could. That's true. Yeah. I was just gonna say, feet's got to be saturated. Is there really more? People always say, like, you sell the pictures of the feet on the internet. Is there really more demand?
Endless. I'm certain it is. Oh yeah.
I think all the ground to break in the online fetish market is in the real. Like, you got to get into the niche shit now. You know, like, I bet if you were into balloon popping, you could make some money on that. You know, ballooners.
We revisited the documentary Tickled.
I never watched
it was like 2013, 2014. Yeah.
I saw the trailer and I was like, I don't need to see this in my life. I don't need this.
Yeah. Well, tickling, I awful. Being tickled, I hate it. It's not fun, not funny. I don't.
Are you caught up
it's
on the
awful.
boys?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I haven't watched it yet.
Fantastic show. By the way.
Documentary is difficult to watch, but then the whole like underground ring of like competitive tickling or endurance. It's called endurance tickling.
And it's not a sex thing.
It was an extortion thing. They were basically getting
what?
They were getting these They were getting these young guys. They offered them like a boatload of money to make this video, and then they would use that video to say like, we're going to release this all over the internet if you don't do X, Y, and Z.
Oh, that's so
and
crazy.
They had them like trapped. It was this one guy pretending to be multiple different people, and he sort of trapped them. And it was just like,
but it was also
he liked exerting the power over them. I mean, I've been convinced to do a lot of things in my life. I don't think someone could convince me to like, yeah.
I'm just saying that the guy who was running that ring was definitely also getting off on it.
Oh, no. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I thought you meant like the boys that were talked into doing it had to be like.
Maybe some of them were.
At least a little gay.
Yeah. Oh, I would assume. I mean.
But I don't know. Money is money when you're young and it's just tickling. I don't know. I'm not a dude, so I
don't know either. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's like money is money. It doesn't be a lot of money for me to be gay.
Well, they sold these guys on like, you're only touching like stomachs and feet and like arms, and like it's like how long can you handle it? It's like an endurance thing. Like, can you take it, sort of thing.
Like the thought of like touching another man's stomach in any way that's not combat is like making me nauseous. And maybe I should unpack my toxicity, but like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to be nicey nice with another fella. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, you watch the clips of these and it's just like, this is appealing to one audience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. The new Midnight Local. Yeah, I guess that's the end of this episode, right? Because we're at 48.
Sure.
Let's stop here.
Yeah, that's the story. I think we covered what happened, why we got fired, what we might do next, where this is going. That's all we need to cover.
I want to thank everybody who's been waiting to hear the show. And we're back, and seriously, thank you. And
yeah, nice. We're back, smaller and better than ever.
Yeah. What's the opposite of thanking somebody?
Harming them.
I would, in this moment, I choose to thank you and me for producing this. I choose to denigrate Studio 71 for not producing it.
Ignoring them. I'd say ignoring them
don't even
completely.
Mention them. We can't just have a spite section at the end of the podcast.
all advertising is good advertising, or whatever. So I guess the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, like that sort of thing.
The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
Exactly.
Okay. See you guys next time on Midnight Local. Be sure to like, subscribe, and get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts.